Am I the only person who for years would stand their ear of corn upright to cut the kernels off? You did that too?
I did it the other day.
Like, why were we not laying the corn down and cutting the kernels off that way so they have less far to travel and ping everywhere? How do you even define a stir fry? Because it's a set of techniques that often are lumped together of cooking relatively bite-sized pieces of protein and or vegetables in a very hot cooking environment, and often with some kind of sauce added, but maybe not even necessarily. This is certainly not trying to be some kind of dogmatic approach to a stir fry, that's rooted in any one particular thing. This is kind of just how I like to cook a mix of protein and veg, like in the summer months. The one thing I'll say about rice is I love it. It's basically a perfect food. I love how everybody has their own technique, that comes to be the one that works for them in terms of how to cook rice and not screw it up. When it's white rice, always wash it. Wash it, rinse it, drain it. You have all that starchy surface exposed, which is nice to take off because that means you will have more distinct rice with slightly less gumminess. I did 2 cups of jasmine rice. That is 2 cups now of water, and I'm gonna add an additional ½ cup of water. So it's 1 1/4 cups of water for every 1 cup of rinsed white rice. I'm putting this on. So give it a good stir before you lid it. Just want to break up like any potential clumps there. And then I've turned the heat down. I'm just gonna lid it. I don't even know what I was doing. Like so many years, standing it upright, watching the kernels fly everywhere and just being like, well, and now we have a flat surface and it's like less roly-poly, so much better. And you can kind of come back and like get a few of the extras or whatever, but like, it's fine. They're not going far. All right, so I'm just gonna lay my veg ingredients out on a sheet tray here, okay? Going into the rest of our prep. So I want some red onion. The trinity of garlic, ginger, and then some kind of onion really works. It just builds like a baseline, for your aromatics that creates so much flavor. Then I'm gonna do some ginger. I want a 1-inch piece, it's a little bit big. If you wanna peel ginger with a spoon, that is totally cool. A sharp knife will do a good job of taking off the outermost layer without sacrificing too much of the ginger root itself. There's certain times that I'm totally cool with microplaning ginger. Like when it's gonna disappear totally into a marinade or something, but there's something about grating ginger that, I don't know, I like having somewhat distinct little pieces where I can really control the cooking process on them. So I'll take the time to, to really mince it fairly fine. Going back over, doing very small matchsticks to cut into very fine dice. I'm gonna need some garlic. I just find like sliced garlic, you can control the cook on a little bit better than minced. When you mince garlic, I just find there's like little bitsy pieces, some bigger pieces that cooks unevenly, and it's a bummer. I'm gonna use about a pound of chicken. In this case, that's about 5 boneless, skinless thighs. Thighs are pretty much bomb-proof in terms of, resisting drying out pretty much no matter what you do to them. You can cook them really hard to the point at which, they're actually getting some color on them, and you will retain a lot of, kind of juiciness. They also just have a little bit more flavor and a little more going on than boneless, skinless chicken breasts often do. I'm just trimming some of the fat off. A lot of that will, render out during the cooking process, but I just don't want any pieces that are huge. You can kind of do like roughly 1-inch pieces like that. You want a size that's basically bite size, but that isn't so small that the chicken wants to sog out before it can get any kind of crispiness or color on it. I'm throwing some cornstarch on top of this chicken, and I'm going to kind of mix it around. I want to season the other side of the chicken Get some salt on there. Now the cornstarch is gonna help dry out the chicken. It's also going to help create some crispy edges, and it's also going to help create a sort of thicker sauce that clings to the meat and the vegetables. Mix up our sauce, and then I think we're pretty much ready to cook. I love pulling it together with like a little bit of sauce, and in this case, I'm using oyster sauce as the base. I'm just like a finishing element that ties everything together. I'm throwing in a couple tablespoons of water. I want to be able to use this for the oyster sauce. Oyster sauce is basically packed with umami. I think it works really well with like the chicken and the corn. The corn brings a lot of sweetness. The chicken is obviously bringing that meaty element, but this just sort of ties everything together. A tablespoon of rice vinegar and some toasted sesame oil as well. And there is water in there, just enough to thin it. And the water is gonna come into play when the sauce goes into our skillet and helps activate the starch that is gonna be on the chicken. This is hot pan, hot oil. So I'm just gonna kind of let this go. This is gonna go for like 6 to 8 minutes probably total to basically get the chicken to the point where it's, you know, nicely browned and nearly cooked through. That's the kind of browning we wanna see right before we start flipping the chicken. You can just start tossing them, right? And you can flip over the ones that are being a little bit recalcitrant. At this point, you do not need the chicken to be cooked through all the way, all right? It's gonna finish cooking with the rest of the ingredients. So I'm gonna use another couple tablespoons of oil. I'm putting it in now because if I put it all in at the beginning, a lot of it would have been absorbed by the cornstarch on the chicken or spattered out of the pan. And I wanna make sure there's enough oil in the cooking environment to be able to get really good heat transfer between the pan and the aromatics, okay? So adding that second addition of oil makes a big difference. I love that kind of like that little sweet edge that the onion is kind of picking up as it softens in the skillet. But you could use scallion, you could use yellow onion, it's all good. Part of using the thighs is because it's that insurance we need, right? In terms of being able to keep the chicken in there while cooking the aromatics, while the corn goes in there, and then when the sauce finishes everything. This is crushed red pepper flakes, right? Seeds all over the place, gonna give you a lot of heat, but not necessarily tons of flavor. You know, sometimes you want a really big punch of heat. I'm gonna use our gochugaru, and you know, an Aleppo style chili flake would have been great too. Something without seeds is really great at adding fruity notes, depth of flavor, but not necessarily tons of heat. Putting those chili flakes in contact with that hot oil is gonna bloom their flavor very quickly and develop quite a bit of depth in the flavor. If I had put the chili flakes in the sauce, it would not develop as much flavor. The corn is going in here. I'm gonna cook it just enough to soften. The corn only needs a few minutes to turn tender and just lightly cooked. So it can go in at the end because it doesn't really need any kind of special treatment. All right, so this is the sauce, right? And this is just gonna bring all of this together. Like this would be frankly pretty good as is, but oyster sauce, little toasted sesame, little water, little vinegar. It's gonna activate that cornstarch. It's gonna bind everything in a nice sauce. It's gonna just coat everything really pleasantly and bring it all together. The sauce has effectively disappeared here. You know, it has become a little bit more of just like a very faint kind of glazy coating, right, on, you know, all the elements in the stir fry. And it's delicious, so that's good too. All right, we can plate it up. I'm loving how fluffy this is feeling, even, you know, for jasmine rice. I love how this manages to put corn in sort of a starring role, but also, you know, make kind of a full meal out of it. It's just way more pleasing, like when you just kind of let the leaves kind of fall and do their thing. And there's something like so aromatic about the ginger and the way that it shines through here. Also the sweetness of the corn and almost becoming a little bit caramelized, like with that oyster sauce flavor, but against the onion. I'm a big fan. The oyster sauce really brings this like really subtle and nuanced flavor, but that is able to create tons of umami and really give you like a full-on kind of flavor experience with pretty little effort. I highly recommend, seeking it out, and I find it to be one of those transformative ingredients where once you start using it, you can't imagine life without it. And that is dinner tonight. All right. Yeah, so half a bottle of oil, but you want the cap in there too.